Greetings, chess friends. We are back here with an exciting stroll down memory lane here, chess history in the Candidates Tournament. Not the one you're thinking of that recently occurred. However, today we're going to take a look at the run-up to the 1990 World Championship match. Now, some of you already might know who played in that match, so a bit of a spoiler, but this is going to be the Candidates semifinal. Anatoly Karpov versus Artur Yusupov. Now, really a titanic battle here between the two of them. I'm going to go through all the decisive games and a couple draws and show you the kind of tension in this type of match. By the way, here you can see the candidates bracket. In the old days, they did not have a candidates tournament, and they did it in further back. But here at this time, they were doing these matches, and it was very tense, as you can imagine, and I feel like a really good format. That way, every game is critical in that elimination bracket type format. So really interesting. Here we go, Nimzo Indian Defense. Now, the first game was a draw. I'm not going to get into the details of all of the games. There were 8 in total here, but this is the second game, and it really is a very tense draw. So here we go, sort of this Nimzo Indian, and then feels like also the Queen's Indian type position. All about the e4 square for black, bishop e2, knight b d7, and Yusupov really gets off to a good start. Black enjoys a nice position, and this game almost converts an attack. But one thing I noticed in analyzing some of the games through is that Karpov, he got into trouble, as everyone does, but he was really good at navigating. A bit reminiscent of maybe Nepo in this recent 2024 candidates. Just getting into some danger, but, good mindset when you do. Recognize how and when to pull the brakes. Okay, here we go. Knight e1 was an interesting move, and you can imagine some defensive setups. For those that don't know, Karpov was the greatest defender, endgame player, positional player. He was like Magnus before Magnus. He really dominated the world of chess. We were into the Kasparov era here now in 1989, but they were about to play their final match after this candidates. So, spoiler. F3, knight g5, f4, and this move gets a question mark, an interesting positional decision. The pawn move, which are always important. One thing beginners can really improve quickly is if you just start paying more attention to your pawn moves. Be very careful not to create weaknesses. This pawn is doing a good job controlling these squares, and once you step forward, you just let go of these 2 squares, which are now easy for black to occupy, and he does right away. So something to keep in mind. Obviously, that's not lost to Karpov. He was an outstanding player, but just thought maybe some better situation could arise. Okay, well, f4, knight e4, knight f3, obviously is what he was aiming for. The queen retreats. Bishop d3, and the other knight fills in. Really almost a dream situation for black in these type of games with the bishop, knight, and pawn all supporting this great knight. White owns the light squares and is hoping to attack on the king side. Here we go. Knight g4. Really, black is in the driver's seat, and this move, queen e1, and I'll point out some other moves, are the type of moves I'm talking about, where he realized he was in danger, and he kind of strapped in and said, I'm not going to get the big knockout move. Is not happening. Just holding on tight. Rook e8, intending the punch. e5. b4, another excellent move according to the engine. Kind of ignoring the king side. Karpov just had such a nice touch. e5, and really opening things up. Black is going for the win. You'll see several times in this match, Yusupov, who was, these are the ratings at the time, by the way, was a bit lower rated, was hoping to just score a knockout. And in match play, that could be decisive. Here we go. h3, another good move. Knight ef2. That is a scary move. If you didn't see it coming, wow, shocking. Many threats here, not the least of which is this bishop. Also, bishop takes knight here. This is based on the fact that rook really is the most natural move. Rook takes f2, knight f2, queen f2, but then e4 comes and wins a minor piece right back. So that's what this is all based on and why it looks so strange, but it just plain works. Now, in the game, he played Karpov, the best move, as you might expect, but you can also take this knight. So it really has to work in both ways. Knight takes bishop. That's just an equal trade, but the queen is under attack. Here, maybe you could insert a move like g5 or queen h4. Interesting game continues on here, but black has the better of it. So pawn up and more active pieces. Really good knight. These pieces are sleeping. Black is actually just winning here. So really nice play. And Yusupov really in the driver's seat. This looks like Karpov on the ropes here. Bishop e2 again responding in an excellent move with an excellent move in a tough position. Bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. More exchanges. Kind of feels like white is easing the pressure. e4, bishop d1, another wonderful defensive move. Still hoping to get these knights just out of here, but bishop d1 is another classy move. Knight takes, and you can feel the attack drying up. Another exchange of pieces here, and the danger has really passed. Another exchange. All of a sudden, Karpov has completely leveled the game. And here, it's actually black who is teetering just a bit. d5, a great practical move. And here, black needs to find one move in order to keep the balance. Otherwise, white starts to press a little. Can you guess which move black played here? That was c6. Very important move, and not so natural. For example, if you play rook e8, queen takes, it's really white. Let's put that on the board. It's really white that has the winning chances here. You have the majority 4 versus 3 here, and this pawn probably more of a weakness as the king starts to come in here in one of these directions. So black really needed to be careful. Finds c6. He was really on his game. Queens go, draw, agreed. Here we go. Of course, rook would take in here, equal 2 versus 2 on each side. Pretty impressive stuff. Yusupov looked like he had him on the ropes. I must say the move bishop d1, and you really feel the tenacity of Karpov. You always hear that. Let's move on. So that game, a draw. The first 2 games are drawn, and now the first decisive game here of the match, which is pretty exciting, the match overall. Very exciting, I should say. Here we go. Another Nimzo Indian. So very popular. Karpov responds e3, bishop d3, and a3, this type of style. Capturing the knight is kind of the general idea in this opening. You give the bishop pair. White gets the bishop pair. But also white has kind of this compromised pawn structure. And therein lies the battle of this one. Knight c6, knight e2, b6 in order to develop the bishop, e4. All of this pretty natural, and the idea knight e8. When I say natural, it's very central. Our pieces come out. Both kings castled. Actually, many games have been played in this position variation. So, okay, I mentioned that these pawns were weak. Not only double pawns, but an isolated pawn. It's very typical, the plan for black, to go after this pawn. And you can do that with a number of motions here. Bishop like a6 like this. Knight a5. And also rook c8, pointing at the pawn and then at a timely moment capturing. So black has a number of ways to pressure this weak pawn, and it's not so fun to defend. Here's the game. f4. Yusupov, again, using aggression at the key moments in this one. Again, I think he maybe was trying to take a lesson from Kasparov, I should say, who, of course, had these epic matches again here with Kasparov. Okay, capture, an unbalancing of the game here, and f takes g6. Yusupov gets the brilliant tag, and this game goes off the rails here. Bishop takes f1. Bold move, allowing queen h5. Punch after punch. I'd be terrified here if I were black. But again, Karpov shows his cool nerves and just plays queen e7, guarding the checkmate. Rook captures, and black kind of sits back and says, you know what? I'm the one up in exchange. Capture, queen g7. Black is up in exchange for one pawn. So it's bishop and pawn for white. Let's say this pawn is extra, and a bishop versus a rook. Which would you prefer? Technically, the rook is more, but of course, then it's close and other factors start to play. The pawns for white are not so good here. They're both kind of weakened and separated. Queen h7, you can tell black wants to trade, and therefore white did not. And queen b3. Let's see, why didn't he capture this Then the really invasive queen d3. So even though this feels like it was a long time ago, this game, 1989, they still had an excellent understanding of the initiative, giving material, and such. So this is a very, very high-level match. Okay, rook f3, rook a c8. Queen does take that pawn now, and Karpov really starting to assert himself. This knight is the most well-placed piece, and even though the black king is a bit open, no pawn cover, doesn't seem to be in any true danger. Again, knight on f1, bishop on e3. Are you afraid of these pieces? I don't see why you would be. Queen f5, queen e1. White is trying to reroute over to the king. This king is so open, but it can't be attacked. Great judgment by Karpov. Just saying, queen on the board, rook on the board, a couple minors, no pawns in front of my king, and I'm just fine. We're fine. King f7. That's pretty impressive. Rook c3, king h2. It gives knight g3 as best here. Obviously, he would have looked at that move, very natural, but chose king h2, rook g8, knight g3, and again, queen f6. Karpov kind of bullying him with the trade offer. Really not wanting to exchange and go to an endgame where the two rooks will start to take over. Black still up in material, although white has an extra pawn for it now. So white has a bishop and two pawns versus the rook. Queen g6, queen e5. Again, very equal game. You can see black really trying to trade in white, just avoiding with everything he can. Another king move, and that one actually puts black really clearly ahead. F5, trying to muddy the waters. Of course, pawn cannot take. You at least are losing the knight. Queen e7, and we should mention here, f5, if you capture, let's say with the knight, this is a free piece, we should mention, but f6. Sensational move there. Threatening checkmate, threatening pawn f7, threatening the queen. You can't just put your queen in the way. This goes checkmate in one more move, so pretty impressive. Actually, rook e3 looks like it was winning, but probably still f6 was the plan. He probably missed the engine showing queen takes g3. Black is winning. Brilliant. Black is winning here with the checkmate guarded rook e take. Wow. Black is winning. Yeah, of course they are. There's no checkmate. This is guarded, and these two rooks are about to take over. Wow. Definitely missed queen g3 there. So f5, not a good move. Black could have played here, missed opportunity, but black does hold on. Again, the queen trade offer. And again, missed rook e3 there. But finally, the queens go. Finally. And this game is not over yet, folks. Actually, these white pawns get marching. Going a little faster here, because I do have quite a few games to show. But these pawns get marching. I do recommend a more intricate, slower study here if you really want to get the most out of looking at these old games. But we're just kind of doing the highlights. Okay, h5. All in all, really, white is doing well here. White is the one slightly pressing. Karpov let it slip again and actually has to scramble and play the best moves just to survive. Black does. Okay, all this being said, the game is still equal. Black still has the rook, which is a great endgame piece, the rook. And finally, with a engine reading zeros here, pawn g6. The tension of this game, this being the third game now, 2 draws, and now finally black cracks. And Karpov takes advantage. The game is over in 2 moves. He plays check, and knight takes. An absolute whirlwind. He resigned here, white resigned down a rook. Now, there's no danger with, let's say, one of the knight checks. Maybe he was thinking here and some move like king h6, we're going to checkmate them, but not even close, actually, with the rook checking. We could even maybe sacrifice to get out of this if we really had to. So black wins. That was it. This move threw it away. Any other move, engine giving bishop d6, bishop c3, couple options there, but white just needs to hold on here and not force the issue. g6 really was forcing and just hangs material. So, wow. Shocking. Let's move to the next one. You'd think after you just lost that game You really not feeling great. Unlikely to get chances with the black pieces against such a legend. So here we go, game number 4. And Yusupov playing one of his favorite openings here, this so-called Lasker defense. Queen's Gambit declined, but when you play knight e4 and just exchange these bishops, black really just holding tight, kind of in the way of the Petrov, so to speak, a solid approach with black. By the way, I should mention both players representing the Soviet Union here, so they are teammates in the Olympics and such, so there's a little bit of that teammates, but so many strong players coming out of that Soviet Union that they're also bound to play each other a lot. So rook c8 and really pinning the pawn to the queen, knight d4, and rook takes. Actually, black all of a sudden feeling pretty good. There's some potential here with the queen, bishop, rook. Black, which I would imagine wasn't really going for a win. Of course, we're always trying to win, but wasn't planning on winning. Usually with black, it's good. You can draw, steady the ship, so to speak. But all of a sudden, black has a good position. How can you say black has a good position? It looks equal. Material is equal. But one good method here I will recommend is just compare the pieces. Whose rooks are better? Clearly black's, right? We are doubled on an open file. We're working together. This rook hasn't even moved, and this one kind of in a closed file. Whose queen is better? Well, that's hard to say. We're pinned at the moment, but neither, maybe a neutral. And whose bishop is better? Just comparing the pieces. Obviously, black's bishop stands very well, controlling and supported here in the center. So black is just better because the pieces are better than their counterparts. That's a good method. Compare your pieces to theirs. Okay, rook c1, trade, and wait a minute. Feels really like black is in the driver's seat. Notice an easy tactic to understand here. Queen takes, rook takes, only legal move, king h7. And all of a sudden, really, white is about to get mated. This bishop is pinned and threatened, can't be guarded, going down, black wins. So easy for these guys, but just kind of showing that all the variations are dead ends for white. Queen d7, bishop takes f1, rook takes, and again, scary, but really accuracy needed. Queen d3. With the queen guarding, you can feel like maybe the danger has passed a bit. Still black, the only one that can really try to press, but it's so equal. And Karpov survives. A shaky one. Never was really lost. Here, h5, and it's actually black here who has one move only. Before the walls come crumbling, black has one move, and he finds it. Brilliant. Rook h1. That's a cool move. Sacrificing the rook for a perpetual check here, and this game ends in a draw. Black had chances. He had chances. Now, I'll mention something interesting happened in between these two games. Both players were allowed in the rules of this match to take a 2-day break. If you wanted a 2-day break, you could request it, and it would have to be granted. Both players took their 2-day break right now. So there was actually a 4-day gap in between. Can you imagine what the chess pundits and critics would say nowadays? Now, 4-day gap was worth the wait because this game won the Brilliancy Prize as an absolutely fantastic game. First of all, Yusupov playing this kind of generic type Torre attack, so to speak, but d5 is a very accurate move. You can imagine someone just lazily playing c3 or bishop d3, but d5, very sharp and correct. Here, the game goes e d5, knight c3. That's a sacrifice, temporary, and kind of similar to some other lines I've seen where that same theme occurs in some Queen's Indians. But here we go. The pawn is recouped. Obviously, scary to play knight takes here, queen takes, and this is hitting the rook. The bishop cannot block. You can only really play knight out. Castle's long next. Scary position. White is doing well. Here we go. Knight takes, bishop b7, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, c3. I'm going to get to the key moment here. Like I said, this game is absolutely brilliant and the best game of the whole match. So rook d1, bishop d5, bishop d5. This bishop now is a really fantastic piece. Same as in the last game, when you're right in the center, you just control so much. and it is uncontested at the moment until now. Knight b6, get rid of your opponent's best pieces, and he basically says, that's fine, it's the square, not the piece. If I put a rook there, or a knight, or a bishop, or a queen, just don't put a pawn there. So here we go, queen e4. You can imagine a position, let's say here, where they capture, and really black just has to suffer guarding this backwards pawn. You have to use your rooks, or maybe even the bishop, and guard this weak pawn here forever. Not fun. So he's delaying taking the bishop there. Okay, here we go. Queen g3. Again, poking around. Very likely this is going to an endgame if ever we have this trade. But white will have the advantage. Remember, white is down 1 game in this match. This being game number 5. Halfway through the match, Yusupov is down a game. h5, you can feel the initiative with white. b3, really preventing just this knight from moving forward. A good move. Knight a4, maybe a thought, knight c4. But e4, intending now to support the bishop with the 2 rooks already in place, pawn, and g5, an interesting response, queen e3, and c4. Kind of felt like that move was coming after b3. This bishop obviously cemented in there, and if we do get a series of captures, we do not, but if we did capture, everyone takes. In the end, white is going to have a pass pawn. One of these pawns will take last, and the pawn here will remain as the best on the board. Rook c7, rook d3, knight d7. The next move I am overriding the chess.com engine, and I am giving the next move a brilliant move here. Bishop takes f7. What in the world? Bishop f7. One of those moves where you're clicking through the game, you might think a typo happened. What happened there? How is it possible? This knight, he uncovered the threat, but it's safe. It's covered enough times. Rook, queen. So what gives? King takes, queen d2. Again, I'll ask you ignore the miss there, but the engine says miss. Rook d6 is best. But queen d2, a very good move nonetheless. King e8, the pressure here is really on black. Black is up a knight here, folks. Remember, Yusupov already down a game. If he loses, this match is over. If he loses this game, there'll be 3 games left and he'll be down 2, getting black twice. So it'll be over if he loses here. Queen a5, attacking the rook. High pressure game, capture. Rook c8, queen a4. Another sensational move here, understanding deeply. It's tempting to take this pawn. Knight f6 hits all these weak pawns. They're going to fall like rotten apples. But in the meantime, more trades. Black is winning. Black is up a knight, recall. So queen a4. It's the handcuffs that is keeping white in this game. The fact that black is so tangled up is the only reason that white here is surviving. Because here, the rook can't move, the king can't move, the knight can't move. They're all stuck for one reason or another. Rook c7, finally Karpov cracks. Queen takes, now that's another pawn here. We have 2 now for the knight. And check, king f8 and rook f3. White wins. Match on. Match is tied now, 2.5, 2.5. Yusupov strikes with the white pieces. That's it. You have to just give your knight and then your queen. It's all over. Wow. So here we go. This was fantastic combination. You can understand why it was It was named the best game of this match, maybe of the whole candidates. I forget, but really nice. Bishop takes f7. Stunning move. Stunning. Deep understanding that this is a very hard position to play for black. I'm not sure what the time situation was here, but he has 1 pawn only for the knight. And again, here, this move really excellent, just as much. Queen a4 pinning. Okay, let's move along, folks. Here we go. We're moving on to game number 7. We are still tied in this match. 2 games left. Epic match, like we said. Another Torre attack. Yusupov really not playing the highly ambitious openings, just getting good positions and trying to attack. Queen e2. Notice, interesting, the D pawn hasn't moved yet. Kind of rare. It does in just a moment. There we go. Kind of rare, though. You need to move your central pawns. Here we go. Rook c8, a3, bishop h2. I like this little maneuver. Usually the point of this is to avoid the knight h5 capturing that, or if you have to come back, capturing that. Knight b1. Wow, reminiscent of the old Steinitz game. Knight rerouting itself to a better square. That's where the knight really enjoys in the queen-pawn openings anyway. So when the knight was on d2, it really wasn't on its optimal square. This little rerouting is interesting and nice to see the backwards moves, the creativity. Okay, b3, queen a8. This is a nice construction for a queen. You would think a queen in the corner, common sense would kind of say that's a bad square for a queen, especially with a lot of pawns and pieces around. But the reason it's good is only when it's really coupled with the bishop that it can become a very powerful battery. Trying to take this g2 pawn and potentially checkmate white. E4, a good central move. Knight takes, queen takes, b5. Again, gets the inaccurate symbol, but a very creative move. The knight cannot capture this due to bishop taking on e4. This pawn needs defense. So really interesting. One variation I'd like to see is if pawn takes, you would think potentially a sacrifice was on tap, but the best move actually is even better, d5. Just blasting open the center, and eventually here, bishop takes a3 is scary, and the queen and bishop battery now. Black is better here. Black is better. White is on the ropes. So really nice move, b5. I like that one. Bishop f4, b takes c4, b takes c4, and this pawn a bit weak. That was the counter strike that really Karpov needed. Capturing bishop for knight, always critical, but he sets up a sort of blockade. Opposite color bishops here, and c5. Another really good move. Yusupov found that move c6 earlier in the match. A good kind of liquidation type move, getting capture here, capture, capture. Everything comes off, and white, Yusupov, the only one that can win. And they play quite a few more moves. I'm going to go a little faster to see if Karpov can hold. You can tell this would be the match. If he wins this game, it is opposite color bishops against the legendary defender, but the pawns, interestingly on this one, are all on the squares where they can be taken, right? This bishop can get to these pawns, and the white bishop can get to this pawn. So here we go. He's trying to get them off that color. Typically, you always hear opposite color bishops as a draw. Black wants to trade more material. Black wants to trade all the pawns, and hopefully just sacrifice the bishop for the last pawn draw. Typical strategy. Black has gotten their king to the center, and you can imagine it's worth playing out here, but after a while, I think white realized this is futile. Against Karpov, no less. So here we go. King d2, draw agreed, last game. Game 8. Now, I believe if this game was a draw, they would play 2 more games, I believe, at the same classical time control, and then go to rapid. Again, winner moves on to face Jan Tiemann in the candidates finals. Winner of that plays Kasparov. So here we go. Again, essaying this knight e4 variation, same as the last one. Queen takes e7, c6, very solid by black. Probably wanting a playoff now. Of course, with the black pieces, it's hard to win on demand. But here we go. Takes on c4, bishop c4, e5. Very thematic move. Great lesson here for the beginners. Watching this bishop is buried in here. Always difficult, the queenside bishop. How to get it out? Well, you're going to need to move one of the pawns. Sometimes it comes out this way. But e5, very thematic move. Capture. Great move. Pawn takes. Sometimes these moves go a bit overlooked. You're just clicking through and you say, yeah. But if you think about it, really, this is a good key moment here. If you had taken with the knight, knight just calmly moves to f6, and black really doesn't have too many problems. This bishop wakes up, the rooks come to the e and d files. Things are good. Taking with the pawn, he still plays knight f6, but now rook e1. Okay, you have to move. Now knight e5. And with the isolated queen pawn, Karpov really just taking up the responsibility to attack. Bishop f7, knight f7. You have the rook already lifted. This rook is active, and our queen can join the party very quickly. Every white piece is playing. That's a good recipe for an attack. Rook g3, bishop f5, queen h5, bishop h7, question mark, queen g4, mate on the board is being threatened here. g5, and that is not a good sign. h4, white in the driver's seat here. f6, scary as can be here. Remember, the whole match is on the line. Pinned here, threatened here, guarded, everything, and many in-between moves coming here. Complex position. Great move. H takes g5. There's a knight hanging here, folks. Of course, you cannot take it due to g takes h6 and queen coming in, but I'll bet he calculated it. The king maybe has to run to f-file. Very scary. Doesn't take the free piece. He plays h takes. Still the knight is hanging. Don't think you can take it. f4. Remember, this knight is pinned, folks. Can you imagine the tension at this moment? Winner moves on. Loser goes home. This is really where the legends are made. And probably most of you know one of these players and maybe have heard of the other because of the result of these type of epic matches, the semifinals, the finals of the candidates. Here we go. F takes g5 and black takes the other way, the knight. Black is up a piece. But then g6 comes, burying the bishop alive. Queen and rook battery capture. Captures on e5. Look at all the in-between moves, folks. It's really fantastic. Bishop takes d5, another in-between move. Looking for the right end games because that's where this game is headed. Captures the bishop, captures the queen, king h7, not the best move. Rook d6, and Karpov, the legend, emerges. After a crazy attack, he doesn't win by checkmate, but instead by his signature rook endgame technique and just the classic way that positional players, endgame players, transition to a winning game. Rook behind the pass pawn. This pawn is the best on the board, clearly the only one that has a chance to queen. We are up a pawn as well. Everything that we like to have in a rook endgame is here. The better rooks, the extra pawn, and a3. That's just so Karpov. Not the question mark, but the patience. Knowing that this game is in hand. So here again, 2-pawn advantage. Rook g5, just dreaming of some way to hold on. I want to point out that g4, which holds the pawn, kind of looks like a move, instantly throws the game away. The threat of checkmate stops everything. Let's say king f1, rook e2, and this game is all zeros, draw. So, wow, that would have been a huge mistake. Instead, Karpov plays the best move. Rook d6 check, rook h7, rook d4, and forcing a trade of rooks. More trades, the better. Look at this one, rook g7. The more trades, the better for the side that's winning. Here, with less material, it's easier to win. They play on a bit, probably just completely hoping for a miracle. Dejected. Match over here was Yusupov. Rook b3, another icy cold move, not even trying to get all the way down to the bare pawns. Also comes with a threat. Rook c3 is a major threat, trading the rooks, and this one would be over. g4, rook b6, and here nicely closing all the doors. a4, just the patience, the technique. The king is locked away. Just going to force this pawn forward, and then at any moment we can also go grab this one. For example, let's just play a move like rook c6, g5. Let's say rook d6, you tried to wait. Here, probably the best way to do this, of course, if we play g6, we know the kind of classic idea of coming behind. But I think the best move here, let's say maybe rook a7, kind of puts black in a tough position. You don't want to go guard this pawn. Not much else to do, but we're going to play a move like king h6. And if you check, we block with the pawn. Otherwise, we're taking a third pawn. So way too much. Game, set, match, Anatoly Karpov goes on to win, dominates the match versus Timan, and goes on to play Kasparov in another epic match. So the two of them, the greatest rivalry in chess history, without a doubt. And this is how it starts. You forget some of these matches and how they went. Karpov seeded right into the second round. and defeats 3 very strong players on his way to play Kasparov. Love the match format. A lot of great games and clashes, tension, maybe something for the governing body to think about returning to. I wouldn't be complaining at all. So thanks again for the watch. Really appreciate it, and hope you have a great chess day.